Hey, what's up everyone? Jason Turley here, back with another video. And today I wanted to go through this TryHackMe room. It's a website we haven't visited in too long. It has been a while. This is the pwn101 room. It has intermediate level binary exploitation challenges. So if I scroll down here and we look on the Get Started page, we do see it does have some prerequisite knowledge that you'll need in order to knock out these challenges, mainly understanding the C programming language, the basics of assembly, some experience using any debugger or disassembler of your choice, and to make the actual exploits you can use Python or the pwn101 framework, and then just a lot of patience because this stuff can take time, a lot of trial and error and going down rabbit holes to actually figure out how to exploit these things. And down below, we see the list of topics that we will cover. And if you've watched this channel for any period of time, a lot of this will look familiar to you. So this is kind of like a repeat and a rehash of certain exploitation techniques. However, on this channel, I don't think we've really covered too much integer overflows, format string vulnerabilities, our global offset table, or procedural linkage table overwrites. We've definitely played around with ROP a lot. We've definitely done a lot of ret2libc and ret2win and buffer overflows. So everything in this challenge, in the series of challenge, will take place on the stack. And if we scroll down, we see I have completed some challenges, but I do plan to knock all of these out and showcase them each in their own dedicated video. So to get started, we can do challenge 1, pwn101. So I already have the challenge files downloaded. Let me pull those up here. If I do file on pwn101, we see it is an ELF 64-bit executable. It is not stripped, so it still has those awesome debugging symbols. So when we are reverse engineering the binary, it'll be easier to kind of make sense of what's going on. So we run it and we get this cool TryHackMe banner, pwn101. Hello, I am going to go shopping. My mom told me to buy some ingredients. But I have low memory capacity, so I forgot most of them. Anyway, she's preparing biryani for lunch. Biryani is a pretty delicious dish. Can you help me buy those items? And then it's saying, hey, type the required ingredients to make biryani. Okay, so we can just say, I don't know, rice, and please subscribe. We hit enter and it says, nah, bruh, you lied to me, frowny face. She did tomato rice instead of biryani. Okay, so this is a classic, or we don't know what this is yet, right? We haven't done any type of like analysis besides running the file command. We can do an ltrace so we can look at the library calls that are being made. We see calls to put string to print out that banner, that prompt we saw earlier. And then this is interesting. We have a call to gets, or get string, however you want to call it. So this is unbounded. So you can put in as many characters as you want, as much junk as you want. So let me just slam in a bunch of A's and hit enter. Oh, and it says, hey, here's a small gift for you. Thanks. And then it says system with bin sh. So it looks like we have some type of shell here. So I can do an ID and cat. So that looks like that's how we solve that challenge. But that was a little too simple. Let's actually open this up inside of a disassembler. I'm just going to use IDA Pro. It's the industry standard. And hey, I just want to get better at using it anyway. So let's open this up in IDA Pro. I'm just going to leave all the defaults selected for the file analysis. Okay, hopefully this is nice and clean and easy to read. We see that IDA automatically puts us in the main function, which is the entry point for C and C++ binaries. We see the standard calling convention here is just fast call, and that might become relevant later, but let's just start looking at this main function. So as we scroll down, we see some value, 539. This H means it's a hex value. I can hit H on my keyboard and translate it from hex to decimal, or you can right click and do the same thing. So the number 1337, which is elite speak for just the word elite. It's kind of like an insider joke or a thing with hackers. That's being stored inside some variable here. And I don't always love reading every single line of assembly. I kind of just like to skim through and look at calls and jumps. So we see a call to a function called setup, a call to banner, This probably printed out some of that stuff we saw on the terminal, the TryHackMe banner, pwn101 and whatnot. We can see the messages, like, hey, I'm going shopping, and type in your ingredients here. And then we see that call to get string. And then directly underneath that, we see a comparison being done. So here's that variable from before, and we can actually rename this. Instead of variable _4, we can just give it something like number, something that's easier for us to keep track of. So it's comparing the number with leet. So if that number remains leet, or 1337, we take this branch, Nabra, you lied to me. Otherwise, we take this other branch and we get some type of shell. So what we need to do, or what we've already done basically. So what's going on? So the get string function is reading our input from user input and it's storing it on the stack. It's storing it inside of this buffer here, which is likely hex 40 bytes or 64 bytes. Okay, so here back in our disassembler, I'm actually just going to rename this as well to buffer to give it a little bit more easy way to understand what's going on. So we have our buffer and our number both on the stack. So if I come over to this like very crude diagram that we have started here, we know our number is 1337. And then we have our buffer here. This buffer is of size 64, right? Ooh, this is a funky color. So this is 64 bytes long. We can store up to that much data inside of here. But since we're using that vulnerable get string function, we can actually write as much data as we want to the stack. So we can write our A's, or any character rather, capital A's, just like the convention. So we're writing 64 A's, and then we keep going until we overwrite this with anything, with any type of junk data. And then if we come back here and we look at this branch instruction here, we're doing a comparison on that variable number, and we're seeing if it still equals 1337. And if it does not, then we get shell printed here, right? It calls system. It passes it the argument bin sh, which is essentially just giving us a shell so we can run commands. And just to illustrate this a little bit better, in case the point isn't being driven home, we can do gdb on our executable. Let's disassemble the main function. And let's set a breakpoint on this comparison here. Remember, 1337 is hex 539. So let's set a breakpoint here. So I'm gonna do break star main plus 76, and that will give us this line here. I'm going to run the binary, and I'm just going to type ABCD. We hit our breakpoint here. It's comparing OX539 with whatever is in -4 from the base pointer. So we can do examine word $RBP minus OX4. And we see that has not changed in any way, shape, or form. So if I hit C to continue, we get this like, nah, bro, you lied to me. But if I do something like cyclic with a 72, just picking a random number greater than 64, I rerun the binary, I slam in this data here. Now when we hit our breakpoint, we can see right here, I don't even need to print out the base pointer -4. We can see it is different. These are our lowercase a's. So I can do another examine if I want to. If I want to look at that as hex, we can do that as well. So these are our a's. So when I step forward with ni, we see this branch jump not equal main plus 107. And we can see here, it's loading this string. Thanks, here's a small GIF for you inside of RDI. And then it's going to call put string and then call system with an argument of bin sh. So I can't have like a real shell inside of my GDB debugger. So that's how we solve that challenge. Let's actually make a exploit inside pwn tools. So I'll say from pwn import all. And let's say p equals remote, and we'll get the IP address and port later. As far as our payload, this would be very simple. Let's just make 64 A's, or we can do 68, it doesn't matter. And let's do a p.sendLine payload, and then a p.interactive, so we can actually handle our shell. Let's save this. We need an actual IP address to grab, so let's come back to TryHackMe. If we click on this first drop down here, let's click on Start Machine, and this will give us an IP address to connect to. We see the port is 9001, and I actually do need to start my VPN. So over here, I have this command for my TryHackMe VPN. Okay, sweet. We have our target IP address. Let's actually ping it real quick just to make sure we can actually reach it and there's no problems with our VPN. It might take a second. Okay, there we go. I can ping the IP address. It took a little bit. So even once you get it in TryHackMe, it might take another minute or two for the service to actually come online. So let's come back to our exploit here and let's slam in that IP address we have. Save and exit. Python 3 exploit. And there we go. We have our little $sign here indicating that we have some type of system prompt. We see we're the pwn101 user. If I do an ls, we see we have a flag.txt as well as the C source code. So if we wanted to cat that out or look at it, we can see exactly what is going on here. So there is the function for setup. There's the banner. You see here, they created a buffer of size 50. However, when we look at it in our disassembler, it is actually hex 40 or 64 bytes. And the reason for that is likely because the compiler likes things to be multiples of 4 or 8. So it made it 64 bytes. It added some additional padding. So that's kind of neat. That's kind of interesting. So don't let that trip you up too much. If you're doing some C programming and you create something of one size, but when you look at it in a disassembler or a debugger, it's something different. The compiler does like to add padding just so things are evenly aligned and spaced. So we see right here, the call to get string with our 64 byte or 50 byte buffer being passed. And then underneath it is this actual comparison. So underneath the call to get string, we see this if statement here. It's simply checking if this variable is 1337 still equals 1337. If it is, hey, it's just going to exit with a special exit code. Otherwise, it gives you a shell. So pretty simple, pretty neat. When I first solved this challenge, I didn't even realize they had the C source code file included here. So that is pretty neat. So that's it for this video, short and sweet. Please like and subscribe. We'll be back very shortly with the write-up and solution for the rest of these. As always, take it easy, and I'll see you guys in the next video.